Okay, so we just finished up taking our common assessment this week, and we just finished up looking at the periodic table. Today, we're gonna start chemical formulas and stuff. So we're gonna look at different types of bonds. My kids in class, we talked about ions yesterday. I'm so sorry. We talked about ions on Tuesday in class and how they kind of share valence electrons for an ionic bond. One of them will lose it and the other one will gain it during the process of this sharing. So we're going to actually look at different types of bonds that are going to happen that are going to make compounds for us. Now, the important thing about compounds is that you understand it's two or more elements together. They're chemically combined. So what that means is that whenever we go to look at the chemical formula is going to have two capital letters. All right. Now, if you only see one capital letter on it, then it's just an element again. We're going to discuss tomorrow a little bit about the difference between compounds, organic and inorganic compounds, and then we're going to talk about molecules. But today we're just going to kind of look and see how these bonds happen and how they share these electrons and stuff. Now you've got to stop and think. For the first level, we have to have 2 to be completely happy. For the second and third level, we have to have 8 to be happy, for them to be full. Now, group 18 on your periodic table are noble gases. They're stable. All 8 seats, or if you're helium-2, are full. They're never going to react. They're never going to be able to go and join other elements in order to make a compound. So those will always be either a molecule or they'll be an element and stuff. Okay, so what I've got is that sheet at the beginning of your Edpuzzle. You need to cut out all of those pieces. And you can kind of do it right now with me. I'm going to sit down and do them real quick, and I'm going to show you an easy way to cut it out. So you're going to need glue or tape, depending on which way you want to put it in your notebook. And you're going to need scissors and a copy of that. Now listen, if you don't have a printer, it's okay. You can draw these with us. As we're doing them, you can just draw them into your notebook. But the first thing I need to do is I need to put my topic or my teak down in my notebook in the next available spot. So when I do this, I'm going to write it real fast right here on the next page that's available. And our new topic is going to be that we will recognize we'll recognize that chemical formulas are used to identify substances and determine the number of atoms of each element in chemical formulas containing subscripts. There we go. Chemical formulas containing our subscripts. So you should have gotten a sheet that looked like this, and yours is probably going to be white if you print it. If you don't print it, then that's fine. You can draw it in with us. And what I do is I always start with like the straightest edges. When I'm watching this video, some things that I need to inform y'all of is that every single day you will have a warm-up or a spiral review. It will always be at the end of the Edpuzzle. So we've gotten to where we were recording and kids weren't going and watching the videos and they were trying to get the attendance for the day. Well, that's not going to happen anymore. From now on, you have to watch the videos, you have to do the work with it, and you have to do your spiral review, that will be a link at the end of every single one of these egg puzzles. So if you go in and you don't do the questions with the egg puzzle, which we can track if you're doing it or not, then you don't get attendance points because you're not really doing what you're supposed to be doing for the day. I have quite a few kids in my class right now that are trying to just do the spiral reviews on the days that we load them without the egg puzzle, and that's not going to count for attendance. So please make sure that you're watching every video, because just not watching and learning how to do this stuff is what's going to hurt you whenever it's time for your test. Alright, so I have all of these cut out, and I have the little inserts or excerpts or whatever they are for them cut out too. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next page on my notebook and stuff, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can kind of see. I've got my glue bottle here ready to go. I've got my writing utensil. If you don't have these cut out or you just want to draw them, that's fine. Whatever you prefer doing. But what we're going to do is we're going to look and see how some of these elements join each other and come together. And I always like to start with the easiest one. I start with calcium, Ca. It has 2 valence electrons. So if it has 2, it needs 6 more to be happy. So the easiest thing to do is to find one of these that will be 6 to go with it. So that just so happens to be oxygen. So what I know is that Ca and O go together because they make a level of 8 total. So I'm just going to kind of put a drop of glue on them. And I say that, my glue bottle just quit. I'm so sorry. We're just going to put a drop of glue, and then we're going to put them down on the next page in our notebook. Okay? So if I do that, I have it like this. Now, one thing that I need to understand, when I'm writing my chemical formula for this compound, if it's a capital letter, it has to be a capital. And all I'm doing is counting the pieces. That's how many atoms there are. So this is having 1 atom of calcium and 1 atom of oxygen coming together, and they're sharing. So it's going to be Ca capital O. All right, so that's what I've got there. Then I'm going to go to my next one. Let's do C. So if I put capital C here, all right, so that has 4 valence electrons. Well, if I look at all my puzzle pieces that go that direction, I have a whole bunch of oxygens, and I have Cl. I have 2 Cls. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see. All right, I have a C here. I can combine and take 2 of these valence electrons and give them to 2 of my oxygen, and then that leaves me 2 more valence electrons that can go over here to these 6 oxygen here, and that gives me a compound there. So those match up, and they're happy. That's a multiple of 8. That oxygen now has 2 from carbon, and this one has 2 from carbon. All right, so when I go to write that, I only have 1 puzzle piece of carbon, but I have 2 oxygens, so I put a capital O with a little 2. That's called a subscript. That means I have 2 atoms of it, which I do. I have 2 puzzle pieces here. My next puzzle piece I'm going to look at is I have Na, so sodium. And then if I look at it, it has 1 valence electron on it. I need to have 8 total, so I'm going to come and I'm going to find Cl, which has 7, and that makes a multiple of 8. All right, so then that combines, and that makes the compound NaCl, which is actually table salt. Okay, so NaCl, there's 1 puzzle piece and there's no subscript. You never put a 1 down as a subscript because you already know by listing the element that it's there. I'm not all of a sudden going to have O over here because there's no puzzle pieces for O. So just by listing whatever the symbol is, I automatically know that that's in there. Okay, so I don't make assumptions and assume that the rest of them, any other elements in there, because I don't see that in my formula. The biggest one that we have is AL. So I'm going to take AL here, and I'm going to take the other AL piece because I know these two go together. All right. So to even start, I know I already have two ALs in there in this compound. So I'm going to put AL with a subscript of 2 because these two are going to go together. All right. Now it has a total of 3 valence electrons and 3 valence electrons here. So that gives me 6. I have to get to 8. I don't have anything that's going to fill these. Like these CLs, they won't go here because that just still leaves all these guys over here. All right, so I know my CLs aren't going to go there. But if I take 2 valence electrons from aluminum here and go here, that gives me 8 with 1 left over. If I take 2 from this 3 and put it here, that gives me 8 with another 1 left over. That means I can do another oxygen right there, and those valence electrons will fill each other. So I have AL with capital O subscript of 3, meaning that I have 3 oxygen atoms in there. And if I did my math right, that is a multiple of 8 all the way down. Okay, so the end number will give me my 8 that I need. Which, I mean, obviously if I do my math, that's 24, and that's a multiple of 8, so I'm good on making sure that this is a compound. My last one I'm going to have is CA. I can't repeat the same thing. Number one, I don't have the puzzle pieces anymore, and it wouldn't make sense to have the same compound there. But I have 2 valence electrons, and what I have left are 2 chlorine. So I have a VE valence electron of 7. If I borrow 1 and borrow 1, then I'm reach my multiple of 8 for each one. And that gives me 16, which is a multiple of 8 total. It doesn't mean 16 valence electrons. It means that between those, it worked out right. So I only had Ca, Cl, subscript 2. All right? So when I have this stuff written down, I know that my puzzle pieces are going to work together, and I know that I'm going to have my compounds just right. Now, there's parts to a chemical formula we need to discuss. Okay? Each chemical formula, and what I do in class, is we just kind of go to the next page and we write this in. And I like using multiple colors. So I just write up here notes for chemical formulas. So I just put together a quick little kind of cheat sheet to explain stuff. So we're going to use 2H2O because we know H2O is water. We know that that's the name of it. All right, and what's easiest for y'all is to use something you know. So the first thing that I need to look at here that I know is whenever I'm looking underneath the capital letters, my H and my O, these are elements. Every capital letter makes an element. So all I do is look at the capital letters. Remember, I told you that a compound has to have 2 or more capitals. This has 2 or more capitals. All right, so those make my elements. Then I've got to look. All right, from there, if I want to know how many water molecules I have, I look at this big number here. This is called a coefficient. Just like in math class, the big number out front is called a coefficient. That tells me the number of molecules. So if I want to know how many molecules of water I have here, I have 2. Now over here, we only had 1 molecule of everything because there is no subscript. So if there is no number, you automatically have 1. No number means 1 on both coefficient and on subscripts. So look in here, I have no coefficient on any of these, so then I only have 1 molecule of them. All right? Here I have a 2, so I know I have 2. And then these little guys down here, this one, and then the lack of one, because we know I don't have to have it, because I know I have oxygen just by listing it. I have one molecule of it. These are called a subscript. And they tell me the number of atoms. And then the lack of number means I have one. Okay, we just don't put one down there. It's just understood. So it means I have one atom of it. So if I was to draw this molecule, what I tell my kids is we cover up any number out front. Okay, or if there isn't one, just don't worry, cover it up too. When I draw it, I have H, two of them, O. There we go. There's one water molecule. One molecule of water. When I lift my hand up, I see it twice, so I draw it again, but my molecules will not touch each other. If they do, then I have one giant molecule of, it would actually be H4O2, because if they were touching, it'd just be one molecule. All right? So if you have any questions, just kind of send us a message and stuff. Make sure you do this final review, turn it in. If you haven't done any of the other ed puzzles for this week, go back and do them. All right, talk to y'all later. Bye.